Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Hard Count Football Podcast Live. My name is Jacob Charnow, leading the next generation of football fans live on the Hard Count Football YouTube channel, and of course right here on 1252 Sports Chicago. Guys, it's another week. It is July 17th this week, so I'm very excited to get into some NFL news, some stuff around the league, some speculation, because we have some contract stalls with all this franchise tag stuff going on. The franchise tag deadline was Friday at 4 p.m. Mostly none of the players that were under franchise tag got extended or came up with a deal. Some of these include Orlando Brown, Jessie Bates, Mike Gesicki, and Dalton Schultz, among others. We'll get into the Jessie Bates situation in just a second, because I definitely want to cover that. Listen, there's a lot going on, right? There's a lot going on. It's the middle of the offseason, the middle of the summer. The season starts in what? We have less than 2 months until football. We have a little bit less than a couple weeks until training camp. So we're close, guys. We are really close to getting there. I'm the most excited. I couldn't be more thrilled. This week it's just me. It's just riding with me because I have some weekend plans. So this show will be pre-recorded again. Sorry. The summer's super busy for me. And I'm getting ready to go to college. So I have a lot that I need to get done. I can't always be around on Sunday mornings. But of course I need to give you a show. So here it is. And there's more than enough to talk about. So let's start off with this Jessie Bates situation. So Jessie Bates was franchise tagged by the Bengals with the hope of getting him extended. Apparently they lowballed him hard, like 4 years, $16 million in total. That's $4 million a year. For a top safety, that is not worth it. I don't know if there was a signing bonus or something, but that's ridiculous. Don't forget the Bengals, they drafted a safety in the first round. They drafted Daxton Hill. So one can only think that there is certainly the possibility that Jessie Bates is traded before week one, even before training camp. This could get ugly quickly because his agent reported it. There is Jessie Bates has zero plan to report to training camp and zero plan to play on the franchise tag. And I don't blame him. Jessie Bates is a top safety in the league, and he deserves to get paid top money. Problem is the Bengals don't have that money to pay him. They had a big free agency. They have a really good roster. They don't have the money to pay a safety. And listen, it sucks because he does deserve the money. But that's what happens when you have a good roster with a lot of young players. You look towards the future and you say, all right, well, we're going to have to pay Joe Burrow at some point. We're going to have to pay T. Higgins. We're going to have to pay Jamar Chase. We're going to have to throw the bag at Jamar Chase if we want to keep him. We just paid Alex Kappa in free agency. You're going to want to bring in free agents. I'm sure there's going to be guys you want to pay, maybe if you want to make a trade. You don't know. You don't know what guys are going to want, who you have on your team, what these contracts are going to look like. And safety is not a premier position in the NFL anymore. But it's important. It's not premier. You don't need to pay top dollar. You don't want to be, if you have that much talent, you don't want to be paying your top dollar to a safety. So, especially when you just drafted a young one with out of Michigan, Daxton Hill, with a lot of upside. So I don't blame the Bengals, but it sucks for Jessie Bates. But Jessie Bates, from what it looks like he might not be on the team come week one. So what teams could trade for Jessie Bates, right? I wrote down some teams. Number one, I know I'm a Jets fan, but you look at the Jets and you say, all right, well, if I'm Joe Douglas, I'm absolutely giving the Cincinnati Bengals front office a call and saying, what do I have to give up to get Jessie Bates on this defense? Because he's young. He's a great player, right? And if you look at this Jets defense and you look at the additions that they had in the offseason, not only offensively, but defensively, just this whole team, right? On offense, you add a Garrett Wilson. You add a Breece Hall. You add a Laken Tomlinson. You really start to hammer, that whole talent, that young talent aspect that the Jets, have been trying to get all these years, but finally Joe Douglas did it. And this looks like the year that the Jets might finally put it together. If Zach Wilson can take that next step. You look at the defense, the additions on defense, you get Carl Lawson coming back, who had an Achilles injury last year during training camp, and he obviously couldn't play. You have you have Jermaine Johnson, who you get a steal at the end of the first round. You take out of FSU. He looks like he's a day one ready guy. You have CJ Mosley, right? You add Sauce Gardner, you add DJ Reed to this secondary. Why not add the piece of Jessie Bates? Because right now, all you add Jordan Whitehead, right? But Jessie Bates can certainly play free safety. Jordan Whitehead's more of a strong safety. And then you have LaMarcus Joyner, Ashton Davis, guys who are, they're fine, but they're backups at this point in their careers. And then you have the Quinnen Williams up front as well. This team is just very, very talented and young. And I think Jessie Bates could be a good guy to get in terms of leadership for this secondary. To have DJ Reed and Jessie Bates, that would be great. Jessie Bates was on a winning defense last year. I think that the Jets are certainly should certainly be calling Cincy to try and get him to try and get Bates in the Jets locker room. Another team, right? You look at the Giants. The Giants are certainly a team that could use him. Really, anybody could use a good safety right now. The Colts are certainly a team that could. I think a team closer to winning will, or kind of on that edge. So maybe not the Giants, but a team like the Colts. A team. I don't think they have the picks to do it right now, or they can even pay him the money that he wants. But the Rams could certainly use him at safety. This is the Bucks could absolutely use him. There's a lot of teams that could use Jessie Bates, but whatever team ends up trading for him, if he ends up getting traded, they'll be getting a fantastic player. And I'm super excited to see where this goes. I love off-season drama, and I'm sure there will be speculation, and this is not the last that we're hearing about this Jessie Bates situation, because you have to remember whatever team gets him has to pay him as well. So we'll see what happens. Another, storyline that I guess we could talk about is this Jimmy Garoppolo situation. And so Jimmy G, there was that whole thing, this came out where apparently Jimmy waited to get surgery on, I think, his shoulder, so they could so the 49ers couldn't trade him. So now they're waiting and waiting. But it looks like Jimmy Garoppolo, he's going to get traded at some point, right? Where is Jimmy G going to get traded to is the question. And a lot of people have said the Seahawks. I don't think the Niners trade him to the Seahawks. I just don't think it's a feasible situation in the division too. I doubt it. If the Seahawks wanted another quarterback, they should have gone out and made an offer for Baker Mayfield, because that was the most realistic situation for them. The team that I think should absolutely go after Jimmy G, and I was talking about this with Peter Blake and Harry the Greek over on the sports it was the over under, I think. It was one of them. It was one of the shows with Peter and Harry. Check out both of them. They're both great shows. But I said I made a point that I said the Cleveland Browns should go out and get Jimmy Garoppolo. And I have a list of reasons why. So the reality right now is that Deshaun Watson, who the Cleveland Browns, blindly traded for, because they can say they did all their research in the world and all this, but we all know that's BS. And they were told they're back in on the sweepstakes for Deshaun, and all of a sudden, bam, they traded for him. They got trigger happy, pulled the trigger, paid him the most guaranteed money in NFL history for a player with 26 sexual assault allegations. I've talked about how ridiculous that is week in, week out for however long. I don't need to keep hammering that, but I'll talk about, Deshaun. The reality is Deshaun probably won't play this year, right? He won't play. He should get suspended a year. I think he ends up getting suspended for a year, at least. The Cleveland Browns have a roster right now that is in their prime, right? Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, they just got Amari Cooper. They have all these guys who are in their prime right now, right? They can, Amari Cooper might be a little bit past it, but he is still certainly a great wide receiver and a great wide receiver one for this team. This is not a year. If you go into this season with Jacoby Brissett as your starting quarterback and you expect him to start all 17 games, you are essentially throwing away your season, because the AFC North is so competitive. You're not going to compete with the Ravens or the Bengals if you're the Browns. You're not, right? And the Steelers have a great defense and are a better team if Jacoby Brissett is starting at quarterback. Jimmy G spent the last however many years in San Francisco running a West Coast style offense that, is quarterback friendly. It is a run first offense, right? They run first, a great offensive line. You look at what they've done, right? Look at what they made it to a Super Bowl. They've done all this very easy run first offense. Look at the Browns. The Browns are a run-first offense. It's a very, very similar offense to what the 49ers run. So what's telling me that Jimmy G can't jump in there for a year, right? And allow give Nick Chubb the ball, hand him off the ball, be able to make those passes when you need to. I'm a Jacoby Brissett fan. I'm the first. I will defend Jacoby Brissett, but he is not going to make those passes as consistently as Jimmy Garoppolo would. Jimmy Garoppolo is in no world a bad quarterback, right? Is he elite? No. But is he good? And is he a starter? I think so. I think that Jimmy Garoppolo is still a starter in the NFL, especially in an offense like this. It is not. It's not like you're committing to him for the future, right? If Deshaun Watson gets suspended a year, he's coming back the next year. You're paying him the most guaranteed money in NFL history, right? There's a reason the Browns are only paying Deshaun Watson $1 million salary this year. It's because they don't expect him to be able to play. That's why. So why not get a rental in Jimmy Garoppolo that you only need for 1 year that could honestly make the playoffs with the roster that the Browns have and the coach? He's better than Jacoby Brissett, right? And, you know, he's run the style of offense before. It'll allow, with Jacoby Brissett, it'll bring down all the other talent. Amari Cooper won't be able to do as well. Nick Chubb won't be able to get as much going because teams are going to focus on the run because there's no pass threat, right? Kareem Hunt, same thing. With Jimmy Garoppolo, teams have to worry about the pass because he can make those passes. So it'll allow Nick Chubb to be better. It'll allow Kareem Hunt to be better. It'll allow Amari Cooper to be better. It'll allow David Njoku to be better, who just paid big money to. So if I'm the Browns, I'm calling up the Niners, right? They'll trade him to the AFC. It's a 1-year commitment. It'll get Jimmy Garoppolo off the roster. It'll allow the Niners to focus on Trey Lance as their future quarterback, get the past out of the room. I think that it's a win-win for both sides. And this trade should not, it's not that it should happen. It needs to happen for the Browns because they have no other options right now. And if you go into the season with Brissett, like I said, you are essentially tanking. You are tanking this year then, which is silly because you have so many guys that are in their prime and you're not in a rebuild. So it makes no sense to me. I want to talk about this also, a team that did bring in a rookie quarterback and a veteran quarterback this offseason. What team would that be? That's the Pittsburgh Steelers, still in the AFC North. And I want to kind of get into this whole Mitch Trubisky versus Kenny Pickett week 1 thing because it's certainly a competition. I'm sure people have their opinions on it. Right? Some people say, well, Mitch Trubisky did this and Mitch Trubisky did that, so he should be the starter. Kenny Pickett did this, Kenny Pickett did that, he should be the starter. I have both sides, and I'll tell you who I think. So let's get into it with Mitch Trubisky, pros and cons. The pros for Mitch Trubisky starting week 1. Veteran experience. It's big. It is big in the NFL to have veteran experience at quarterback week 1. It's not only going to help them, it's not only going to help the receivers, to help the offensive line, to help this whole offense, but you have a better chance of winning on day 1 in such a competitive division, which is so important, right? You can't get down early in the AFC North. If you start the season, if you start Kenny Pickett and he doesn't start off hot and he goes, 1-5, you're done. That's your season. Your season's over at that point. It is. It doesn't matter. Your season is over because I promise you that you're not gonna win the division like that. You're not. 1-5, it's even 1-3, 1-4. It's hard to come back from. Okay, so you have a better chance of winning week 1 with Mitch Trubisky. On top of that, Mitch Trubisky also sat a year behind Josh Allen in Buffalo, and watching how Josh Allen developed, right, and watching the changes they made. Because you watch Josh Allen from the years before last year, and you watch him and you're like, man. And you watch him and Trubisky and you say, you know what? Like a lot of these mistakes that Josh Allen was making are a lot of the similar mistakes that Mitch Trubisky was making. Now, I'm not saying Mitch Trubisky is going to take a Josh Allen like jump in Pittsburgh because that is unrealistic. Josh Allen is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL now. It was an unprecedented jump that Josh Allen took. But do I think that it definitely helped him sitting here behind Josh Allen and behind Brian Dable and Sean McDermott in a very well-run system? Because his career in Chicago, Trubisky's career in Chicago was less than organized, and that's an understatement. So I think that year behind Josh Allen and all of them definitely helped him. And same thing as it helped Jameis Winston. And we've seen guys sit and come back more successful year after year. We always see it. So I think that could be a very similar situation for Mitch Trubisky. Now, the cons of starting Mitch Trubisky week one. Mitch Trubisky hasn't played football. He hasn't started a football game in a year. Sometimes we see guys who don't start for a year come back and not be as good, right? He hasn't, and it's a minor con because he was obviously in practice every day. There were games where he got in where the Bills were blowing out teams. So it's not like he hasn't played in a game in a year, but he hasn't started a game in a while. He hasn't had control of a starting offense going up against a starting defense in quite some time. So I think that might lead to a rough week one, week two start. And that's certainly a possibility. He also wasn't that accurate when he played, so that's not what you want to see either, especially in the in the Steelers offense. So now Kenny Pickett, really the only pro that I could think of with starting Kenny Pickett is that you start getting your offense familiar with, your hopeful future quarterback. He was a first-round pick. He's the guy that if you're spending a first-round pick on a quarterback, you obviously want him to be your quarterback of the future. You start, the Steelers have a lot of guys on offense that might be there for a while. Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool. They just draft George Pickens out of Georgia. And Najee Harris. So you start getting those pieces familiar with Kenny Pickett. But that's it. That's really the only pro. Cons, you're throwing your rookie quarterback into the fire week one. And I am not a fan of that. I've never been a fan of that. Especially a guy like Kenny Pickett. And a year like this year where, Pickett, in a draft like this year where Pickett was seen as the most NFL ready quarterback, but still not that NFL ready. Years before, you've had guys like Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, all these guys. You look back in years, Kyler Murray, even Baker Mayfield, like these were guys who were ready week one. Baker didn't even play week one, but he was ready week one. There was a drop in the talent level in this year's quarterback draft class, obviously. And even though Kenny Pickett might have been the most NFL ready, that doesn't mean that he's ready to start week one. So if you throw him into the fire and he crumbles, there's a lot of quarterbacks who can't come back from that if you destroy their confidence. The Steelers offense is certainly, it's not West Coast. It's not the LaFleur style, the Shanahan style offense that we've seen be very quarterback friendly, right? This is an offense where the quarterback has to take demand. You're filling in for Ben Roethlisberger, who had a subpar season. They expect you to play better than he did, which won't be that difficult, but still, like, this is not an easy offense to run. And I think overall, sitting Kenny Pickett for, however many weeks, even if it's a full year, I think it's the most beneficial thing to him because I think Mitch Trubisky can do enough to win this team 7 or 8 games. And that's at a minimum. I think Trubisky, if everything I heard about him last year in Buffalo practice was true, and then everything I'm hearing about him now is true, Mitch Trubisky could be, a more than serviceable quarterback for the Steelers this season. So I'm going to go with Mitch Trubisky as the week one starter. Sticking with that quarterback talk, I made a list of 5 quarterbacks that I think are under the most pressure heading into 2022. Quarterbacks under pressure. Let's start Jalen Hurts. So Jalen Hurts is a guy that I continue to say is going to have a big year. I think the Eagles are going to have a big year. I think Jalen Hurts is a big year. They've surrounded him with all the pieces that he needs to succeed at this point this year. You get him they have a good offensive line. They have, they trade for AJ Brown. You get Devontae Smith. You get him in his second year in this offense. You have Miles Sanders in the backfield, who is a very good running back. They have Kenneth Gainwell, who I think is a very good running back. All the pieces are there. It's up to Jalen Hurts. If Jalen Hurts steps up like I think he does, then he's going to get a big contract and they'll play well and the team will win games. If he doesn't play well, i.e. if the Eagles don't make the playoffs this year, I think that the Eagles are more than ready to kick him onto the curb, which I don't know if that's the right call, but it's the call, right? because at this point for the Eagles to not make the playoffs, he would need to play really bad. And I think the Eagles will win the division, but we know the Eagles were in on the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. They were in on the Russell Wilson sweepstakes. This is, I obviously I hope Jalen Hurts comes out and plays well, but he is certainly under a lot of pressure for 2022. I think that's fair. Daniel Jones is another one. Daniel Jones, I kind of debated putting him on this list because I think he's done no matter what. I think that he could play. He would need to play, playoff level football, Pro Bowl level football week in, week out for the Giants to consider keeping him. They didn't pick up his fifth-year option. I think he's essentially playing as a tryout for another team at this point, and the Giants are kind of they're trying to lose out maybe one more year before they can bring in another quarterback, which whatever, but Daniel Jones is certainly under a lot of pressure, not only for the Giants, but if he wants to, possibly maybe get a starting job next year, he needs to play well this year. He absolutely needs to play well this year. Even if they don't win games, you need to see the talent and the production from him. So good luck to Daniel Jones, but he is certainly under a ton of pressure heading into 2022. Number 3, I put Lamar Jackson. And Lamar Jackson, and this is not necessarily in order, but Lamar Jackson is under a lot of pressure for his team and in terms of the media, because oh boy, a lot of people trash Lamar Jackson. I'm not. I am not one of them. I think Lamar is a top 10 quarterback, but there was a list that came out where they listed the top 10 quarterbacks, and he wasn't on it, which I think is ridiculous. But Lamar, I don't know about this narrative that Lamar can't throw the football anymore, that he could never throw the football, because he has gotten better and better every year at throwing. Give him a target. Like you can only do so much for him. He made so many good passes last year that were just dropped by Hollywood Brown, dropped by Devin Duvernay, dropped by any of these receivers who wouldn't be a wide receiver 3 or 4 on any other team, right? Give Lamar a target like hell. I mean, I'll just because it's in my head. Corey Davis, you're right? Even Corey Davis, Amari Cooper, any of these guys, right? I'll give you guys who were free agents. Allen Robinson, any of these guys. It's Lamar can throw the football. Let him throw the football. I don't know if it's a receiver issue, if it's a Greg Roman issue, but let him throw, because no receiver is going to come to Baltimore if Lamar's not allowed to throw the ball, right? And I understand you want to utilize his legs. He is the best pure runner in the NFL. He is. He's the best running quarterback in the NFL. But it's, it's tough to say, it's tough to say Lamar can't throw and to make that argument when he has no weapons. He has no receivers. He has nobody catch the ball, right? He's got Mark Andrews, and Mark Andrews just finished, he had enough production to finish as the tight end 1 in fantasy. And you watch Mark Andrews, and he's consistently making an impact day in and day out, because he even has, you give Lamar even a little bit of talent to use, and he, takes it and runs with it to the moon. So Lamar's under a lot of pressure because, one, he has to prove to the media that he can throw, and I guess to the Ravens too, because now Lamar's playing for a new contract. And Lamar's got to, if you let him throw and you let him work a little bit, I think he could definitely win some playoff games for you, and easily win 12 games this season. That's how talented I truly think he is. But yeah, Lamar's playing for a contract. He wants that Dak Prescott money. He wants top tier, top 10 quarterback money. And while I don't know if the Ravens are going to pay him, I think they should. I think they will end up paying him that money. He's definitely under a lot of pressure, because if the Ravens don't make the playoffs again, or if, they lose in the wild card, I don't know what the deal is going to be. I don't know. It's a tough situation for both the Ravens and Lamar, because if they do lose in the wild card or don't make the playoffs, you start to think maybe this and that, maybe you move on, maybe you go back to the traditional quarterback route, because the Ravens, they have a top tier defense, they have a top tier offensive line, and some good running backs. So I don't know. I don't know. I guess we'll see. But Lamar's certainly under a lot of pressure heading into this year. Baker Mayfield, same thing. I didn't talk about it last week on my show because, like I said, it was pre-recorded. And the Baker Mayfield trade happened after I recorded my show. So Baker got traded to the Carolina Panthers. This is his chance. And I know there's reports that it's an open competition, but Baker's healthier now, right? He's better than Sam. He's so much better than Sam Darnold. This shouldn't be a competition. But why is Baker under a lot of pressure? Well, one, he has to prove himself and that last year, and that he's not bad, because he was bad last year, but he was playing most of the year injured. I really do not think that he is a bad quarterback. He has weapons. He does have weapons to succeed offensively. He's Christian McCaffrey. He has DJ Moore. He has Robbie Anderson. Definitely, two serviceable wide receivers to use. They're not top of the tier receivers, but they're certainly great. They're certainly good. They have a bad offensive line, so we'll see how that affects Baker. But you have a solid run game too, and all this, and the Panthers did just draft a quarterback. You got to think about it like that. They did draft Matt Corral, so I don't know. I don't think I don't think that he's in that quarterback competition, but if you want to be a starter after this year, you have to prove yourself this year. Because I think that he certainly can be the Panthers, next quarterback, next year, the year after. But he's definitely under pressure to play well this year. To prove it to the Panthers, but to kind of stick it in the face of the Browns for running him out of town. And if he plays that well, he looks at the Browns and he says, you got rid of me. I was healthy. You just paid a quarterback the most guaranteed money in NFL history, $230 million to not play, right? To not play. And now you're finishing at the bottom of the division, and you're winning 2, 3, 4 games. Panthers 6, 7, maybe 8 games. Still not great, but certainly better. And if Baker can prove that he's good, you make the Browns kind of regret their decision a little bit. And the number one quarterback I think is under the most pressure in 2022 is Ryan Tannehill. Tannehill, listen, it's a good story. Ryan Tannehill, he got Adam Gase in Miami and all this, and he was bad there. Got another chance in Tennessee. Came out, was very, very good. AFC Championship run and another playoff run the year after. But they lost to the Bengals last year in gross fashion. Tannehill, certainly the worst game we've seen him play since he left Miami. And he said it, he went on a podcast, said it haunted him, and all this, that he, this and that, and whatever. But Tannehill's arm talent is nothing special. He's a good leader in the locker room, but, and there was no competition there, but now the Titans, in a shock move in the 3rd round, get a quarterback, right? They draft Malik Willis, who was my favorite quarterback in this draft. They draft a quarterback that is now on Tannehill's rear end all season, because I think Malik Willis is going to play really well in camp. And if Tannehill kind of, doesn't play well, we could see Malik Willis. We could start hearing that buzz of maybe Malik Willis will come in at some point. And then, the Titans fans get real impatient because there's a lot of talent in Tennessee right now that they don't want to see go to waste. And once the fans turn on you, then the franchise and the front office and the coaches, they slowly start to turn on you, because you think about the NFL as a business, especially the owner. The owner wants to sell tickets. Are you going to sell tickets watching a bad quarterback play, watching a guy who's throwing 3-4 interceptions every week play, and not winning games? No, you're not going to buy tickets to see that team play. So Tannehill's certainly under a ton of pressure in 2022. I think the most pressure of any quarterback. Yeah. So with that being said, I say we wrap this thing up. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching today. Hopefully next week we're back. We'll have Harry back on. We'll do all that. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to go follow me on Twitter @Jacob Charnow, Instagram at Hard Count Football. Subscribe to the Hard Count Football podcast. Check out the Hard Count Football podcast live every Sunday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central, right here on the Hard Count Football YouTube channel. And of course on 1252 Sports Chicago, guys. Like I said, I'm really looking forward to the season. Enjoy your summer. Enjoy, this week. And I'll see you all next Sunday morning.